Annual semi-yearly podcast. We're finally back after the summer. Super excited to be talking with you guys today. We've got a huge guest with me, as always. 1,600 miles to my right, Mr. Zoop. How's it going, buddy?
Going good.
Good. And very special guest, the one, the only, Jessica Chobot. How's it going, Jessica?
Great. How are you doing? Aw, thanks.
Unless you are crazy living under your rock, Jessica is the host of Nerdist News at Nerdist.com, host of the Bizarre States podcast, and a BattleBots judge, among tons and tons of other things. But the reason we actually kind of discussed bringing on Jessica is you are in a... Oh, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback.
Someone's hearing themselves.
Jessica is actually an ambassador for Operation Supply Drop, and everybody knows we work very closely with them. So we thought we'd bring you on and discuss everything in your world.
Thank you.
Pop culture.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, your resume is extremely long. I mean, FHM contributor, Maxim contributor, Jinx.com, women's clothing sponsor. How did you get started in all of this? Kind of give us your backstory.
Well, that stuff's pretty old. I mean, I don't do that anymore, but that kind of started right around 2000, I would say, 7. The backstory, it's kind of a long story, but to make it a little bit shorter, I basically went through what I call a quarter-life crisis back in like 2005. I was going for a second degree. I was paying for college out of pocket. I was doing all that stuff, and then they ended up switching the requirements for the field I was trying to get into at the last second. And so that would have tacked on another, because I was going to night classes because I was working full-time too, so that would have tacked on like an extra, 4 or 5 more years at the rate that I was going, which was ridiculous. I was going for an art teaching degree, and it was just like, I might as well be a doctor at that point. I'm going to college for forever. So I kind of just had this breakdown, quit my job, started working at what was it called back in the day? Not GameStop. GameStop bought them out. It was not Best Buy. It was I'm totally blanking. Whoever GameStop ended up buying out back in 2006, and was the key holder there and started selling video games because I just really loved video games. I'd been playing for since I was like 7 years old, and it was always kind of this thing that I was always into. So I thought, oh, this is a great way to kind of get a discount and still do what I want to do, and I don't care about anything anymore, and blah. So that eventually led to me kind of sneaking into E3 that year. I ended up stealing one of our, not really stealing because they're free, but taking one of our like flyers for the sales that we would have, that we would mail out to people, little mailers, and taking the logo off that and making fake business cards, and then taking my pay stub and sending that in as a sales representative. And they allowed me to have a pass. So I got a pass. I flew over there and went to the show and ran into G4. And this was like right before the girls and women in video games thing really took off. We were still kind of like the snow leopards, not really seen very much. Yeah. Like the only people that were female that were there at the show, besides myself, which were like a handful of us, were booth babes, sales girls, and other dudes' girlfriends. And so it was still kind of a new thing. And so I stood out a little bit. So the G4 stopped me and did an interview, and then realized when I was talking to them about World of Warcraft at the time that I knew what I was talking about. So then they had me on Attack of the Show, and that kind of coincided with this picture, this Lick PSP picture that I had posted, that I kind of posted as a joke but ended up turning into a meme. And then that ended up leading me to IGN, and then IGN is actually the company that gave me my first shot at actually working in the industry. I started from like 2005 to about 2000, like the end of 2005, about 2006, roughly, writing as like a freelancer for them. And then from there, they ended up offering me a position as an on-camera host, and I actually didn't want to do it. I wanted to be an editorial reviewer for games, but took the position just because it was what was available. Moved out to LA, and that's kind of everything. Started working for them, worked for them for about 6 to 7 years. Worked at G4, moved over from G4 to Nerdist, and then a bunch of freelance in between that. So that's kind of how it all happened.
So basically you're saying the key to being happy is going viral.
Kinda, yeah. Well, you know what? I wouldn't say my success was, part of it was luck because of it going viral, but you know, there's stuff that hits all the time that you don't turn that into.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I was just kidding. You know?
no, I mean, I just saw the opportunity, and so made sure to, like, really, I basically harassed IGN until they gave me a job. I literally emailed them, bothered them, and called them every day until they were like, fine, here.
That's how you have to do it. That's,
Yeah.
That's how a lot of big people in the industry get started, you know, just hammering the pavement and everything. That's super cool. It's interesting to hear how a small thing, because I remember that PSP thing long time ago.
Yeah, it was like 2005, I think, or 6.
Yeah, I was in my 7th year of college at the time, I think.
That's awesome. How long have you been with Nerdist?
Nerdist, I think we're going on just about 2 years now. I think it's coming up, and it's been maybe even 3. I can't really remember. It's just I just show up at work and I'm like, hey, but it's been going really well. I mean, everybody here is really fun. I'm at that position now where I've been doing it for so long that stress of coming into work is kind of not there. You know, it's one of those. It's smooth sailing at this point. So it's pretty cool. Plus, everybody. I mean, I know Chris already from G4, so that makes that a lot easier. And Legendary is really behind us as a company, and they're a great parent company to have. And I've gone through that before with bigger companies kind of owning you. Like IGN for a while was owned by Fox, and I was there for that transition. And you know, it can get a little weird. And so this so far though, with Legendary being our parent company, has been fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, I imagine that affords you a lot of opportunities with all their different hands in the pots and stuff like that. I know even Chris, you know, doing with the Talking Dead and stuff like that. I think that's pretty interesting. You know, how everything's related.
Yeah, it's weird. It's helpful, and at the same time, it's not as easy as one would think. Like how do I explain it? I mean, Legendary is its own company, so it has its own plan, you know, and we have our own plan. And if we can scratch each other's backs, then great. But often, you know, it's kind of like two ships sailing in the night where you're supporting each other. But for the most part, I would say 99.9% of what we do and what they do is kind of just self-sufficient. We really kind of blend things when it's a really, really big event, like what did we just have? San Diego Comic-Con is what I was trying to say.
Cool. So you guys have quite a lot of creative freedom and stuff like that?
Yeah, and that's why I like it, is that
Awesome.
It's not, you know, there's not that feeling of big brother watching over you and always being like, what are you doing, and why are you doing it, and blah, 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 blah. They pretty much leave us to our own devices.
Good.
So you just mentioned The Walking Dead. Jessica, what did you think of Fear the Walking Dead? Did you watch it, the premiere? I imagine you did, right?
I watched parts of it. I didn't watch the whole thing. I actually...
That's not a good sign.
Had taken, well, not because of that. I had taken my kid to Disneyland that day.
Oh.
And I was so tired. I fell asleep on the couch. But the bits and pieces that I saw, and I also interviewed a few of the guys that were on the show, and you know, I've also been reading up on other people's comments on what they thought about it, and I've noticed that a lot of the commentary was that it's been really slow starting, or that has been mostly the common complaint, and I'm kind of not. I mean, I feel like everybody, especially with these big dramas, needs to give us a show like that the the 3-episode rule, you know, where you give it to the 3rd episode before you decide whether or not it's really taking off or if it's kind of already dead in the water. I mean, with things that they're this grandiose, I feel like they need to have that time to introduce everybody and then do the one major plot twist, which, you know, is obviously zombies happening, in order to get everything rolling. And then from there, it's a lot less about, once the introductions are out of the way, they can move on to the meatier stuff. And, you know, everybody said the same thing about The Walking Dead when that first started.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it's just a matter of, like, what are you personally willing to invest? But I definitely think, like, 3-episode rule should count for any major show like that.
Well, they got a lot of good actors going for them too. I forget his name, but the lead role. I mean, he was in Die Hard. He was one of the FBI agents, and I mean, he was even in Training Day as one of the gang members. So, I mean, they've got some established actors in there, and like you said, you know, you're not dealing with like Rick waking up post-apocalypse. You're dealing with people before, so things aren't instantly going to happen. It's going to slowly happen, and then I imagine, you know, an episode or 2 later, like you said, all hell's just going to absolutely break loose and complete chaos.
Well, and it's like one of those things too where it's you know, they're trying to establish these everyday families, and everyday families, I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm watching myself. It's not exciting, but we need to have that there in order to figure out what it is that makes these characters tick and what's important and not so important to them, so that when we finally do have the shit hit the fan, that's where we get our understanding of them. So unfortunately, yeah, we all have to go through this kind of like suburban walkthrough of their existence.
So,
yeah, I hope it turns out to be as exciting as The Walking Dead's been. And I think you're right about the 3-episode rule, because I remember when The Walking Dead first came out, it was a really good episode and then super slow. And
out on the farm.
Yeah.
The farm season.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll forget about that season. Herschel's Farm. So it looks like we kind of started off with pop culture as opposed to gaming. So that leads me into one of your recent videos regarding the Hound and a possible comeback for him. You know, I enjoyed watching that little tidbit that you put out, and my wife and I have actually been binge watching again after the season ended. The previous season, we started season 1, and the episode we actually we went through it all again. And the season we actually watched was or the episode last night was the one where Arya leaves the Hound. So after watching that fight with Brienne again and seeing the Hound take his injuries, I don't know how he can come back. I mean, the man had a bone sticking out of his thigh or his femur. I mean,
it's been a while since I saw that episode, but I mean, I'm throwing out there, I don't think he could survive on his own. I think somebody came and must have helped him. Whether that is Brienne felt guilty and went back and like grabbed him. I don't know if she was even around then or not. If they had already, she would have been there, right? Because
they would have been in the area.
Yeah, didn't she reach out to Arya and was like, you can come with me? And Arya's like, peace out to both of you. I'm out of here.
Yeah, she's like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
See ya. I'm headed to Bravos.
You know, Brienne could have, because she has a tendency to make errors on the side of this like knightly
chivalry, doing the right thing. There you go.
Yeah, the chivalry kind of thought process of hers kind of fucks it up for her sometimes. Oh, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it.
Sweet. Okay, kind of fucks it up for her. So I'm wondering if she maybe went back and helped him, or if some dude just stumbled along, you know, and happened to find.
Or Beric, and his Thoros of Myr, the what is it, the goddess of fire or whatever, the god of fire. Yeah.
Because I'll admit, even aside from the relationship with Arya that he has that ended so quickly that it was like, whoa, that's kind of weird. At the same time, I mean, the theory is solid as far as it feels so heavy that he is so destined to go up against his brother.
Yeah, it's kind of like
such a thing.
It's kind of like Jon Snow dying. I mean, you know he's going to come back in some way. Yeah. You can't just kill off all the best characters in a show and not expect some kind of riot. I mean, for what it's worth, I thought the Hound was probably one of the coolest characters in the entire series. I mean, you got this bad guy who's willing to kill a kid, but then he's not going to rape someone and save someone. I mean, he has definite rules that he follows. So,
He just listens to orders. What's really interesting, if you think about it this way, is that, and I can't think of anybody else that has been left kind of in the ether, this, like I'm about to talk about next, but everybody that you see die abruptly in the show that's like your favorite character and you're always surprised, you see their death. Like, there is no mystery left there. It is gruesome. It is in your face. It is always 100% like they are dead, with maybe the exception of, well, we can get at the whole...
Stannis.
Yeah, and, well, I was going to also say, oh, what's her name? The mom that ended up...
Catelyn,
Yeah, and, you know, in the books, that's a whole other ball of wax.
Yeah, so, Lady Stoneheart and everything.
Yeah. So aside from her, though, everybody, and even with her in the show, it's very obvious that she's dead. So he's the only one that's kind of been left in that gray area where it's just implied that he dies. It's not actually shown that he dies. So that's what really is making me pause and wonder, like, oh, they've got to be going somewhere with you.
Yeah, it's like what's his name, Mance Rayder, when he killed him off in the when they killed him in the show. I'm like, wait a second, he can't be dead. This isn't like the book, but it's kind of like the Walking Dead. The comics are so different than the actual show. I mean, it's got to be just for pacing, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what worries me about if the Dark Tower ever gets going and approved. How they're going to even tackle that whole thing is nerve-wracking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, just before you came on, we were talking a little bit about E3, and you said you're skipping PAX, but went to E3. Were there any kind of surprises there that you weren't really expecting? Yeah,
Last Guardian. I have been waiting for that since the first trailer was announced back in I don't even remember when, and this was the first year that, gosh, whispers were, it was a hardcore rumor that this is happening, and I just refused to get my hopes up. And then when I saw it, though, it was interesting, a lot of people that have seen the press conferences that Sony showed off were like, yeah, it's good to have it back in the list, but honestly, I don't know if it holds up. It doesn't look that exciting anymore, da-da-da-da-da. I actually got to see the behind-the-scenes trailer, which added on another, 5 minutes of footage, and it definitely holds up. I actually am really surprised that Sony didn't show that to the audience rather than have that behind closed doors, because you saw a lot more interaction and relationship building between the boy and the bird, cat, dog, snake thing, and how kind of the puzzle solving works, and the graphics have been pumped up, and they're definitely making it for this generation of consoles. So I think the thing that really stood out was the relationship between the animal and the boy, and that didn't come across in the press conference. So thank God that I actually got to go back there and take a peek at it, because that is definitely kind of stoked my fire and love for that title when it comes out. Mm-hmm. So that was a big surprise. Fallout, I knew that was going to be an announcement, but it was still great to see it.
What do you think? Did you play any of the previous Fallout games?
I played Fallout 3.
Okay, so...
And I played parts of New Vegas. I played most of the expansion packs, but New Vegas is kind of where I stopped, because I just didn't like New Vegas.
Yeah, any other... Yeah. That should be interesting. Were you surprised at all by the Kickstarter for Last Guardian?
Wait a minute, what?
The Kickstarter for the...
there a Last Guardian Kickstarter?
Or the Shenmue 3.
Oh, no, I mean, I don't really play... I've never really been into that title so much, so I've kind of not been a part of that whole excitement.
Yeah. It was weird to kind of announce a Kickstarter on an E3 main stage. If you got the money...
Yeah, that's true. It's just that I think that the people that do really like that series are so passionate. If you're gonna do an announcement for that, I might as well do it up there. But yeah, I see what you're saying. If you got the money to invest, why wouldn't you just... Why are you going for Kickstarter? But it could be one of those things where they might be worried about investing their own money based off of... Just because a lot of people say they really, really love a series, when it comes back out, they don't necessarily end up buying it. You know, it's kind of that nostalgia factor that ends up biting you in the butt, where everybody's really vocal about it, but then when it comes to putting out your money, you don't really pick up on it. So that might be a reason why, but yeah, who knows?
Probably safer.
So we've got a question from Lono B right now, one of our compatriots, and he's wondering what your go-to game is right now.
Well, I actually, oh my God, I just got burned. I wouldn't call it my go-to game, but I've been playing, I started it last night. God, this is, okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my day. So I had pre-ordered Everyone's Gone to the Rapture because I really love Dear Esther, and I am really into those games that are kind of like Myst-like, where you can explore and discover puzzles. I mean, although Everyone's Gone to the Rapture doesn't really have any puzzles, but you know, you can explore and discover storylines and what happened here. And so I've been really looking forward to that title. I played the title for like 3 hours last night, and I'm super weird and OCD-like when it comes to checking every nook and cranny. Like, I try to open every door. I try to open, you know, flip on every light switch. I get really weird about it. So what should have normally taken me probably maybe an hour and a half took me about 3 hours. I would say I got last night about more than halfway through. So I brought it over to play on the stream that we do this afternoon out of Nerdist, called RP Jess, that we do on our Nerdist Twitch stream. And I downloaded my profile, I switched everything over, I went to go play it, and it auto-save. I didn't realize this, but it was auto-saving to my hard drive at home. So when I started the game here, I had to start it all over because my continued save wouldn't load. So I was like, oh, God dang it. But I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm gonna blow it off, because now that I know, you know, now that I've already made it more than halfway through, I could probably breeze by it pretty quick without like having to look at everything, because I know what the important stuff is. So I do that. I make it all the way through to the end of the stream, and right when I get to the very end, like the actual ending, like there is no more gameplay. I literally hit the button and the play is over, and now it's just the final cutscene. I have to go shoot Nerdist News, and we're on a time limit because, one, we had the podcast, but also because at 4 o'clock, Geek and Sundry starts some of their stuff, and they share a stage with us. So we couldn't be in there shooting our show, and so I literally spent all that time. I've been playing since noon. I've spent all that time, and I still don't know what the friggin' ending is, and I'm so pissed off, because not only, I mean, it's a good game, but it's got some issues. Specifically, the quote unquote running ability to it is really frustrating. I know everybody's like, oh, you can push R2. Well, if you push R2 and hold R2 down the whole time, it still is barely a trot. I mean, it's so slow. And then if you do have to let go to go look at an object or click on something, you have to build up that speed all over again. It's not like you hold R2 and all of a sudden you go slightly faster. It's like you hold R2 and you have to build up the speed. And the speed only works if you stick to the streets. If you go off the course, which is the whole point of this game, because it's supposed to be like sort of open world, although it's not really open world, but kind of. You know, it's not, it's super fucking slow. So so that's irritating enough of it. So that probably is the one thing that really, really, really took most of the enjoyment away from me, was that major flaw. And I know that I think the publisher, or the developers, not the publisher, but the developers' Chinese room, they've come out and said publicly, I believe, that they know that they screwed up and that they're sorry. But it's so funny to me, looking at some of the reviews that are out there on the game, how if this had happened to like a major title, and you know, this, even though this is like considered an indie title, I mean, it's still, it's you know, it's on the console, it looks of quality. It's not a rush job. They definitely had some budget, you know. That if this had happened to any other game, I feel like reviewers would rip it apart. Like, just rip it apart for the fact that you didn't have the running ability. And it's so funny, people are making excuses for it by saying, oh, well, yeah, but you know what? It actually is kind of nice because it forces the player to pay attention to the details. If you're playing a game like that, you're going to be paying attention to the details anyway, because that's a very specific kind of game. Yeah, there might be a couple stragglers that come in wondering, what's this? But for the most part, the people that are going to download that game are fans of that type of gameplay anyway. They're not going to really be rushing through anything. They're going to want to get their hands on every little bit of content that they can out of that thing. So to use that as an excuse to me is really irritating. And it's just funny how I can see, because I've done it for so long, I can totally see the way that reviewers bullshit and use it as a way to get around things.
Well, you know that kind of seems like it's the issue with the gaming industry as a whole right now. I mean, as consumers, we become so used to patches, we become so used to DLC and just paying for add-ons and everything else. It's almost as if a lot of these companies now are at their point that they're just like, well, you know what, there's a few bugs, we're just going to release this. Whereas if this was, you know, the 1990s and it was a Nintendo game, that it would completely break the game. You know, I think they're just in a mindset that they can get away with more and more, so they're going to just rush product out.
Well, I don't know. I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. I do think there are some titles that are definitely just rushed out to get them out there because they're kind of cash cows in order to support larger titles that developer or publisher might want to get out there. Mm-hmm. I do, however, think that currently, with the way that things stand, even though we have really powerful consoles, you know, our games are huge. The games that we're playing now are massive, and they're not. I don't know if you can compare them to the size of games that you would get back in the 1990s. That were, you know, they're closed. They're not all encompassing. Right. Like most of these open world games, you know, they're so large now. And there's this never-ending possibility of random side quests and whatever that pop up. And I'm like thinking of Skyrim as an example. That you know, they're almost MMOs. The only difference is, you know, there's not another. I mean, even with actually, you kind of have that with Destiny. So it's this weird thing where I don't. It depends on the title. If it's a super large title like a Skyrim, or like a Fallout 4, when Fallout 4 comes out, I expect there to be hiccups and glitches. Yeah. Because that's just kind of the name of the game. I don't think you can program for something that hardcore unless you want to pull a Blizzard and wait 10 years until you release something, which I don't necessarily want to have happen either. You know, if all it means is like in a week or so I get a patch, then fine. I'm fine with that.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm. But if it's something where it's like I'm playing a game, and I feel that the main, you know, I buy a $60 game.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Oh, I think you might have lost her.
Toss DLC onto me. I would be a little pissed off. So, you know, it's all kind of like what it is you are willing to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I don't know, I guess you see that with the whole Batman situation where people weren't ready to deal with it and they kind of lost their minds about it and made that big thing. And then you're talking about everybody's gone to the Rapture and it's more acceptable. I find Destiny, you brought that up as an example, it's very interesting how they continue to get good press where people aren't really satisfied with the game. Everybody that plays it, you know, does enjoy it, but it's kind of got that grind and everything else. But it's constant good press, and it's really interesting how perceptions are.
Yeah, I've seen a few. I know Malik called them out on a couple things. I've seen a few things written about them where people were frustrated. You know, I think with them, like most games of that nature, though, too, is that you have your hardcore, like this is what they, for whatever reason, it clicked with them. They really love it. They're going to support it no matter what. I think the people that don't like it, you know, don't like it for a variety of reasons. I mean, I was not a big fan of, like, what they had promised us that we were going to get out of it before they had launched it. You know, it seemed like it was going to be a much more story-based kind of, like, gigantic world that we were going to be able to run around in, and obviously the story wasn't there. You know, we had that Dinklage bot VO, which was a little weird, and, like, now they're going to fix it. However, that being said, even though I had issues with those things, you know, I would play co-op with my husband, and we had a great time. So to the point where we've actually been thinking about hopping back on it once they end up doing this kind of like gloss over.
Right.
So who knows? You know, it's just what you're willing to spend your money on.
So you just answered one of my questions because I'm married and I tried to get my wife to play Call of Duty I don't know, 5 years ago or so, and she spent the time just running around in circles facing up at the air. But is that your go-to game with your husband?
We actually play that often together, but I suppose if we do, I mean, that's not really, yeah, I suppose so, just because that's the one that's the most recent. But if there's a good quality co-op game that comes out, like a Left 4 Dead or whatever it is that's out that year that's decent, you know, we'll play. We'll probably, when Halo ends up getting out, we'll probably play a lot of Warzone. I really liked that after getting hands-on at E3, and I'm actually surprised you threw your wife into the deep end of the pool with the Call of Duty. Like,
Yeah, no kidding.
Start her off with Halo or something a little bit more inclusive before you just toss her to the wolves.
Well, I think it was that training map too. I think this is back. I can't even remember which Call of Duty it was because I haven't played it in several years. I've moved on from that, but no, I think it was the training room, and I was trying to teach her, and it just.
Did you have it inverted? Was that part of the problem?
There were a lot of problems, and inverted joystick was not one of them. And she'll be the first to admit, she's not that type of gamer. So
yeah,
I cut her some slack.
Yeah, neither is my wife. She's definitely not a shooter fan.
I'm not much of a shooter fan either, personally, but I don't know. I've been jonesing for one lately. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know why. I usually get cravings to play things like, you know, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture or some sort of action adventure kind of game. But for some reason, Destiny's crawled into my brain recently, and so has Halo, and I just can't stop thinking about them.
What about Battlefront? Are you in any way excited for that?
No, not really. I'm taking it because I usually don't default to shooters. I'm just taking it a little bit at a time and just going with, you know, I'm feeling the vibe for these two titles. I'm going to get in there and do that. And then, I don't know, who's to say, you know, if those end up really clicking with me, I might just open up a whole new world of gameplay for myself. I feel like games are kind of like books, like they find you when you're ready for them. You know, there's so many times I can think of like certain books that I tried to read that when I picked them up the first time, it just wasn't clicking with me, and then I'd put it down and I'd forget about it for like a year, and then I'd come back to it for some reason, and the second time I came back to it, I was like, how did I not realize that this is the best book ever? And Mass Effect was actually that way for me of all games. The first time I played Mass Effect, the first one, I hated it. Threw it down, wouldn't touch it, didn't touch it for a year, ended up going to E3 and talking to some of the devs for IGN during an interview, and I pulled them aside and I was like, guys, I just can't get into it, I don't know what my problem is, you know, but I really, you know, having you on the show kind of stoked the fire again. It sounds like you're doing amazing things, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, like why am I feeling left out? And they had a few words of advice, which was more of along the lines of like, up until that point, I had been playing games the way that I'd been playing kind of like RPGs like that, big RPGs, kind of the way that you played JRPGs, you know, where as long as you followed the main quest, that's pretty much all you needed to do in order to level up long enough or well enough in order to finish the game. You know, you could do some side quests if you wanted, but very rarely were many of them like absolutely required. Whereas Mass Effect, the first one, kind of blew the lid off that, and it was one of those things where no, you actually had to go do side quests before going and hopping on the main mission again. And I remember going to was it Liara's mom? I think it might have been Liara. No, not Liara. In the first one, whose mom kind of like was your first boss battle? Oh, blue hair.
I will admit I never played Mass Effect.
Oh God! What? I think it is Liara to Sony. Let me see if that's right. I've got my computer here. Yeah. So Liara's mom is like your first kind of like boss battle. She's like a low end, like a mini boss almost. But the first time I'd played, I didn't do any side quests. And so when I came to her, she just destroyed me constantly. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And so then I got to talking to the devs, and they're like, no, you gotta approach this differently. Like, you gotta think outside like your JRPG box here, and like go do the side quests, go explore, start gathering some stuff, and come back to it when you think you're ready. So I did that, went back to her. I had over-leveled myself so much that by the time I got to Liara's mom again, I could have farted in her direction and blown her smithereens. And then I realized, oh, this is how I need to approach these kind of titles from now on, these Western like RPGs, and that kind of was a whole different ball game at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Farted in her direction. That sounds like the South Park game.
Yeah.
I love that game.
That's really interesting. You said about the whole like games find you when you're ready. That's super interesting. I've been thinking about that a bit lately. When Journey came out, I was super pumped about it. Never got a chance to play it, and then when it got re-released on PS4, I'm like, it's just a perfect time. You actually have time to play it and sit with headphones on and everything else. So
yeah. I kind of learned the hard way a little bit. Not that any of this is hard because it's all video games, but I learned the hard way a little bit about like forcing myself to play games just for the sake of being able to say I played a game because it was like the popular title. I mean, there was a little bit of that because of work, and I just needed to know what I was talking about. But like to like have that be my default every time I wanted to play something, I started really getting burnt out on video games because I was just forcing myself to play titles that I didn't really like, and then I never really gave them a solid chance even when I was playing with them because I already had a bad attitude going into it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of learned, it took a while, but I kind of learned to back off of that, not feel threatened every time I didn't necessarily have a title that I had played that somebody was asking me about. And then I found out that having done that, the pressure was kind of off, and so now I'm a lot more open to a bunch of different types of games.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I kind of feel the same way, and I guess what happened for me is I'm kind of competitive, a little ultra competitive sometimes. But the current games like first-person shooters, you're always trying to rank up, you're always trying to prestige, you're always on the spot, worried about your KD, how you look in front of others, not screwing up everything else. It gets to the point that it kind of takes the fun out of it almost. So when a key came across for World of Warships, that's the last game I thought I would see myself playing. Mm-hmm. And I just wound up falling in love with it. And then Rocket League came along, and I'm like, this game is go-karts with soccer. This game is fun. And so, yeah, kind of like what you said. It's like the wand picks the wizard. I guess maybe the game picks the gamer, and just, the right game will just come to you at the right time. But when you go into it not as a job, but more just to enjoy a game, I think you get a lot more out of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally does.
Deep thoughts.
Yeah, deep thoughts. So we mentioned Nintendo. Going back to that era, do you have any favorite games from the 90s that you want to throw out there?
Oh, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. That's my hardcore. That kind of got me back into gaming again. And I say again because I had taken a break basically when I'd gone to college. I didn't have any money. I was still playing games occasionally because I brought my SNES from home, and then I had a boyfriend that ended up getting Dreamcast. But
that was a great console. I just got to throw it out there. I'm so upset that it did not do as good as it should have. It was just groundbreaking.
Yeah, no, it was my favorite. In fact, when we broke up, that was a very large point of contention amongst us, was who gets the Dreamcast. But so we played that a ton. So I would say out of the 90s, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, because that kind of got the juices flowing again for gaming in that 90s current gen state of consoles. And then like off of Dreamcast, Soul Calibur was my favorite.
Great game. Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know if you remember the first Galarians. I think that was Dreamcast. It might not have been them. That might have been PlayStation now that I think about it. Final Fantasy VIII on PlayStation was my favorite. I know everybody chooses 7, but I really loved 8. Was Silent Hill 90s? No, I think that was 2000s.
The first ones might have barely been in the 90s.
Those are excellent too.
Yeah.
Number 2 is my favorite, and I'm pretty sure that was like early 2000s. But Silent Hill 1, I mean, it's a classic as well because it's the beginning of it all. I stopped playing after they came out with 4, The Room. That's when it started. I was like, no, that's not for me. And so I was so super bummed about the announcement about Kojima and Silent Hills and all that getting canceled. Yeah. But oh well. So yeah, I would say probably Jet Set Radio, GoldenEye, like the typical ones.
College for me was SSX Tricky. Me and my friend. Well,
I remember that one.
That game was awesome. We played that in Counter-Strike, which I would never in 1,000 years thought that Counter-Strike would still be going strong after what, like 15 years now?
Yeah.
That just boggles my mind.
Yeah. Excuse me.
That's
How about you guys?
From the 90s, you know, I played. I had consoles. I guess what really got me into gaming though was I love the Wing Commander series for PC. Great games, and I still think Wing Commander 3 is the reason that games are the way they are now. You know, with the just the flow and everything. That was really the first game that, you know, you had to make choices. You have full motion video. I mean, you've got Luke Skywalker in there and all these other actors. So I love that series. Command and Conquer was great. Loved those two. And Half-Life. Half-Life is probably the standout that I can remember from the 90s. I mean,
I love Half-Life.
Yeah, I actually need to play it again, the original. It was just such a great storyline, and I mean, I was engrossed in it. I just sat down and played for hours straight. So, what about you, Chris?
Tons of Mario as per usual.
Oh yeah, the standard.
Yeah, the standard. My first big console outside of like the Sega Genesis Nintendo was PS1. So like Gran Turismo for hours and hours every day, and Final Fantasy and stuff like that. So Parasite Eve. I don't know if you guys remember. Parasite.
I remember. I love that one.
Loved it. So good. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Metal Gear Solid, got to throw that up there.
I like that one a lot too.
What do you all think about the new one coming out? Yeah, really? All the reviews are like this is the second coming of.
You know, the thing that's turning me off on it, and maybe this will change once the game actually comes out on it, and I actually get some hands-on time with it. It's just the way it just seems so cheesy. It just seems so Arnold Schwarzenegger-y. You know, like. It's just trying so hard to be so manly and dramatic. I don't know. It's weird. Which is, I mean, that plays into the whole character. I mean, I get it. I just don't know if it's where I'm at right now.
All right. So it's, you think it might have become a cliche of itself almost, or just kind of...
A little bit. And hey, I'm not saying that's bad. I actually suspect it might know it.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Which I kind of respect. It's just that I don't know. You know what it's going to be? It's going to depend on what else is out around that same time. If there's something else I want to play, it's probably going to be put on the bottom of the pile. But if there's nothing else that's like really beating down my door, then I will definitely have it rolling.
So we've covered a lot of games, but I know a lot of your piece at Nerdist is movies and pop culture and that type of stuff. Anything coming out that you absolutely want to see in the near future?
Well, I'm ready for Star Wars, definitely.
Yeah. I think everyone is.
That's kind of a given. Suicide Squad, the trailer, I actually am kind of into it, and I was a big poo-poo butt about Jared Leto and being the Joker and looking the way he did for quite a while. But when I saw the way that him and Harley kind of interacted in the trailer, I was like, okay, I can kind of get into this. It's kind of like a weird Sid and Nancy relationship here, and I'm on board.
They should have gone with his look from Fight Club.
Oh, He's too pretty.
No, after.
Oh, he's so not pretty. I feel like they did go with that look after Fight Club. He got
Wanted to destroy something beautiful. Here's a controversial one. Ghostbusters, since, that's kind of our era right here, the three of us, that's it's kind of sacred ground, and they're really redefining it. And, I mean, it's honestly a complete 180, and I myself am trying to keep an open mind for it, having loved the original as much as I did.
Are you talking about the women's reboot?
Yeah, the reboot.
So, first of all, let me state that I don't think it needs to be remade at all.
I agree, 100%.
That being said, if they're going to remake it, and have it be women-centric, I don't think they could have come up with a better cast than what they did. So, with that in mind, because it's going to happen, I'm going to go in there and just give it a solid shot, because I like all the women that they've hired. I've from the behind the scenes pictures that I've seen leaked out and put out by PR, I like the vibe they're going for. I feel like they're taking it really seriously, and it's not just a hey, let's make jokes all the time about the old Ghostbusters to reference this one, and it's not a nostalgia pandering the way that I think, not that these two should be compared, but like a Gem and the Holograms reboot.
Yeah.
So I'm actually optimistic about it. I don't necessarily think it was necessary in the first place, but I feel like if they're going to do it, which they're doing it potentially right, and so I'm willing to give it a shot.
It seems interesting. I mean, somebody wants to take a swing like that, absolutely. It may turn out to be amazing.
It's a big swing right there. I mean, that's almost a leap of faith. I will admit, though, I love Bridesmaids, so Wig, I think she's a good actress, and she can kind of balance that fine line between over the top humor and just the right amount. So
yeah, she's subtle.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect word for it. So I think she's a good fit for it. Who else is in it? Melissa McCarthy, is she the one that's in it?
Yeah, I think she is.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much almost everybody from Bridesmaids except for Rose. What's her name? Something Rose. Yeah,
so I'm not big on her. I mean, and I'm really what I'm hoping they don't do is go with the cliches for each of them. The overweight and loud and overbearing female. I really hope they kind of break that mold and do it right with them. So
yeah.
But yeah, I'll give it a shot. So we've got Star Wars. Anything? What about recently? Any movies that you've seen recently that you absolutely love or thought have been great? I mean, for me, Mad Max was awesome this year. Probably the highlight. What did I just go see?
We went and saw, oh my God, I can see it in my brain. What did we go see? Oh my God, I'm totally pulling a blank. What was just out recently? It was a Marvel. Why am I blanking?
Was it the Avengers? No, not the Avengers. Fantastic Four?
No, not that.
Oh, yeah, I heard that was.
No, didn't spend money on that one.
Yeah.
Hey.
There was
obviously it wasn't that good, or else I would have remembered.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be able to recall it pretty quickly.
It wasn't the Avengers. It was like right after Mad Max.
What?
Ant-Man?
Ant-Man.
It wasn't Ant-Man. I mean, yes, Ant-Man, but it wasn't. That's not what I'm thinking of. Oh well, I can't think of it.
So it must not have been that good.
No,
yeah.
probably pass.
Yeah, I'm kind of done. Pass on that one.
So
some thumbs down.
Yeah, no kidding. Whatever it was, not worth watching.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're kind of checking out, different things that you're involved in, and started listening to your podcast. For maybe people who don't know about the Bizarre States podcast, do you want to give us the rundown on that? Because that's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, it's kind of, I call ourselves the gateway drug to paranormal and occult weirdness. That's kind of what it encompasses. It's a very off-the-cuff, very low-key podcast about weird stuff. It goes anywhere from ghosts to witches to hauntings and ghosts kind of go hand in hand, to lost civilizations, to just weird news that week, serial killers, you name it. If it's weird and odd and kind of paranormal, like X-Files style, it's on the podcast, but with a healthy helping of humor, because while we approach all the stories seriously in the fact that we're not trying to debunk anything, we also realize that most of it sounds completely ridiculous. So we kind of just have fun with it. I think a lot of the podcasts that you hear or that are out there about conspiracy theories and aliens and ghosts and whatnot are super, super serious about the subject matter, which is great, but also kind of boring, and it's been done 1,000 times before. There's no real, laid back, let's just have fun with this because that's kind of what we're all into attitude. And so that's kind of what we try to bring to it. We've gotten, we've found our groove now. People seem to be responding to it. Free content if you want it.
So what's your favorite paranormal happening then?
Of me personally, or somebody we had on the show?
You personally.
I swear to God, I seriously suspect that I've seen UFOs.
Really?
Yeah. So I used to go to school for college in Columbus, Ohio, and my family lived in Michigan. And so what I would do is anytime I would go visit my family, I would leave really, really late at night to drive back to school because during the day, because it was like a 2-lane highway, or for the most part, it was like a 2-lane highway. It was really, really, shitty to drive. It would always inevitably get backed up because not only is it just crowded, but on top of it, you would, in the summertime, have all these pop-up construction all throughout Ohio and Michigan to try and make up for all the potholes that happened over the winter. So they were always on a constant repair job, and you would just end up sitting in traffic for forever. So I would wait until midnight to drive home sometimes because that way it was a solid shot, there was nobody on the road, and I didn't get bothered. This one time, I would pass Toledo, Ohio, on my way to Columbus. And this one time, between Toledo, I had just passed Toledo, and I was in this kind of no man's land of farms. And it was really, really flat in that area and super dark because there were really no other lights around except for my car and whatever lights they had lighting the road. And I happened to look off to the left for some reason, because I just got this vibe that somebody was watching me, and I look over to the left, and in the distance are 3 very, very bright lights in kind of a triangle formation. And I was staring at them going, no way, what's that? And I was trying to make out if it was a plane, but the reason I didn't dismiss it right away as a plane is because the lights were so bright, it seemed odd. And also because I was so far out in the middle of nowhere, I'd never seen planes in that area at all. Not that they couldn't have been there, but I think they would have been high enough that I wouldn't have seen them. And so I remember thinking to myself, oh, that's really weird. Why am I able to see this? It's probably just a plane. If it's a plane, why would it not be higher up? But at the same time, maybe I can see it because the night's so clear, blah, 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 blah. I'm just kind of working it through my head. While I'm trying to figure out what it is, one of the lights went straight up, super fast, and disappeared. The light on the right went off to the right, and the light on the left went off to the left, all in separate directions, all at the same time, and I never had any idea where they went. And so then I freaked the fuck out. They're coming to get me. And the only thing I can think of is if it wasn't UFOs the way that you think UFOs, like little green men, that maybe it was drones back in the day, because I think there was a couple military
in Ohio.
Out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was thinking maybe it was a drone or something, or maybe it was just 3 planes flying in formation that just happened to be facing my direction. But they just seemed too fast. They just seemed really fast, like abnormally fast. And I mean, it was like a blink and they were gone. And you guys probably know better than me, but maybe there's a plane that could pull that off. But I think even with a plane, you would see some kind of trail, and you got nothing out of these things.
You know, it's funny. It's funny that you mention it because one of my, I guess we'll call it geekier hobbies is astronomy. And last week I went out to West Virginia, and this mountain's like the darkest place in the East Coast. So it's like 2 a.m, and I'm looking with another guy, and we're looking over the horizon. There's this bright, bright light, and it's kind of moving up and down. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, I tell the guy, I'm like, hey, do you see that plane right there? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, wow, that's moving pretty fast. And then it does like a U-turn. I'm like, holy crap, how did it pull that off? And it starts bouncing up and down again. And what it was, it's a star. It was a bright star. And if you didn't know that it was a bright star, I can see why people would think it was UFO, because I thought it was a plane or something weird at first, but it was just so low on the horizon that I guess the atmosphere was kind of messing with it. Yeah,
I mean, maybe it could have been a shooting star.
I saw a lot of those. It was a star. It was. I know what star it was too. So I'm getting into really nerdy territory here. So I'm gonna shut up. Right now. we're gonna move back to cooler things. But yeah, I mean, no, it's freaky when you see that type of stuff, especially when you don't know what it is, because you're like, am I imagining this, or am I on crack?
Well, the whole like you can sense somebody looking at you, like that's. I don't know. Usually that's the case. Like usually when you can tell.
I'm by myself on this highway in the middle of nowhere. Why would I suddenly decide to look right at this object that I didn't even see over there before I suddenly got the desire to look? You know, it seems a little weird. It just seems weird. And I'm sure it's probably nothing. And I'm willing to accept that it's probably nothing. But I'm also thinking, oh, it could be something else.
well, you can go to West Palm Beach, Florida, if you want, because my mother-in-law just moved in with her grandfather, her and her daughter, my sister-in-law, and they've had weird happenings going on in there. And my wife's grandmother passed away some time ago, about 5 or 6 years. So apparently, one night my mother-in-law is taking a shower, and they've got one of those old-school locks, like you know, the one where you have the old key and you put it in the lock. Well, she locked the bottom door, and that was it. Took her shower and went to come out. The top lock was locked. She didn't do it. Yeah,
creepy.
Exactly. And just the other night, and you know, my wife's sister, who's a lot younger than her, she had no clue this happened. She's outside of a room, and she's got like something very, very heavy on a shelf that there's no possible way it would just fall off by itself. Well, they're in the kitchen, and they hear this loud crash. They go running in, and they see this thing knocked over, and my mother-in-law's like, well, maybe the wind knocked it over. So my wife's sister's like, no, there's no way wind could have knocked that over. It weighs like 30 pounds. I'm not staying here. I'm moving out. And she didn't know about the key incident that went on. So, of course, my wife and my mother-in-law think there's ghosts or grandmas just lingering around. So, yeah. Interesting stuff. Yeah, I know. You would probably think so. I mean,
I would love it.
Yeah, there you go. So
that's.
I don't know what to think of that type of stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that movie. Actually, something with gravity.
Indiana Jones. Didn't the Nazis love the occult?
No. Inception, not Inception.
Oh, Interstellar.
Interstellar.
I saw that for the first time a couple weeks ago. That's a great movie.
It is really good.
Oh, I lost everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. Okay, you're back. I got you back.
We're talking about Interstellar, how that was a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've kept you for a long time. Before we go, we had one thing that the whole reason to come on, so we figured we'd talk about it. You are an Operation Supply Drop ambassador. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, what that means, what you do with them, and how you support them?
Well, you know, I kind of just support them to try and help get the word out on the things that they've got coming up and what they're doing. And then we're trying to talk to them. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it or not. We're talking to them about potentially doing a live stream to raise some money and stuff. So awesome. Malik is actually involved with that as well. And in fact, I think he's the one that they've been talking to the most. But yeah, it's kind of mostly just to support it, to get the word out, to kind of just get it out there and like let everyone know what they're up to.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've been a big supporter of them and what they do for a while now. So that's super cool.
Yeah, Yeah, and then they put me in touch with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And if anyone listening wants to get involved, you can go to drmb.co/8bit2015 and help us make fun where there is none as well. So that's our little shout out.
Do you get to go home now?
Yeah, I gotta go relieve the nanny.
Nice.
Yeah,
So I get to go home, but then I go right back to work. It's just in a different form.
Oh, so yeah, the whole parent thing.
Yeah. Yep.
How old is your child?
He's around 2.
All right, so he's
super sweet.
getting to that age where he's going to be playing video games soon, right?
Oh, he pretty much gets them. He watches me. He asks for dragons all the time, which means he wants to watch me play Dragon Age Inquisition.
Nice.
Sweet.
Little gamer. Yeah.
I've trained him well.
Very good. Very good.
Awesome. Well, before I let you go, anything you want to share with our audience? Let them know what's going on in your world.
Yeah, shameless plug for your own stuff.
Yeah, shameless plug. You can find me on Twitter at Jessica Chobot, and Instagram I think is Jessica_Chobot. And then Bizarre States is I'd say every Thursday actually on iTunes and at Nerdist.com. And that's at Bizarre_States. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, I know it's a family show, so I'm not going to mention your last Instagram picture, but it was super funny.
Oh, thank you. That was actually not I just retweeted that or reposted that. That was somebody else's amazing artwork.
Yeah, that's dedication right there.
Solid.
Right on. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Guys.
Had a great time.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
you too. Have a good day.
Yep, you too.